Halloween, a time of year to engage in traditions like trick or treating, attending haunts, and decorating your house with scary props and jack o' lanterns. But my favorite Halloween tradition is watching the Halloween franchise starring my favorite slasher villain, Michael fucking Myers. If you ask any Halloween fan what was their preferred route in the Halloween franchise, you might often hear answers like the first two, the David Gordon Green timeline, the anthology route, or the H2O timeline, to name a few. But if you were to ask me my preferred route, I'd have a more complex answer. You see, I love the original Halloween from 1978 about as much as everyone else who is into the franchise, but I'm also on the side of the coin that wants more content, however we get it, as long as it's good, Michael Myers related or not. But I also identify with the other side of the coin, for the ones who believe Halloween was at its peak in the late 70s to early 80s. As a matter of fact, my preferred timeline, so to speak, has always been Halloween 1978, Halloween 2 1981, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, and Halloween 4 The Return of Michael Myers. They all have this allure to them that screams classic cinema for me, which is magic lost to a degree after the fourth film. It's because I feel like the magic is lost over the years as I continue to watch the Halloween franchise that I can't help but feel unsatisfied given it all. To make a long story short, only the first 6 Halloween films proper do I find myself having the most nostalgia and reverence for. Not saying there's no other films that I appreciate in the franchise, as I quite enjoy the David Gordon Green trilogy of films, despite their flaws and approach of being a trilogy. And I can see some chastising me for being a fan of the first 6 movies, especially with 5 and 6, The Revenge of Michael Myers and The Curse of Michael Myers, being as sloppy and mishandled as they were. While I agree they aren't objectively good films, they still capture what I want the most out of these movies: my favorite characters, brutal kills, and killer atmosphere. Given that this franchise is 13 films spanning over 40 years, I'm willing to sacrifice half of the franchise if it meant trimming out the stuff I can care less for and replacing it with stuff that I do care about. If you don't know me, I wish we got more of the anthology approach, and that's what this video sets out to discuss. While I love Michael Myers, I do feel like pigeonholing the franchise to his character just feels wrong, especially given that it wasn't the intention of John Carpenter, Deborah Hill, Tommy Lee Wallace, and company when they set out to make Halloween a franchise. I get that Halloween 2 pretty much cemented that this was going to be Michael Myers' franchise forever, and Halloween 3 bombing at the time because it didn't have Michael Myers was the writing on the wall for the anthology idea. But if you look to the late 70s and throughout the 80s, there were great films associated with the original team behind the first 3 Halloween movies that, in my opinion, not only match similar quality to those 3 films, but pretty much fit right the fuck into it as a franchise. Whether it be a standalone movie made by John Carpenter or franchises that included the director of Halloween 3, Tommy Lee Wallace, I take these films in the Halloween franchise any day over the films between H2O through the Rob Zombie remakes and even the David Gordon Green movies to an extent. The films in question, I for a while now have Headcanon as my own Halloween franchise, as they match the cold fall time of year, manage to be eerie and suspenseful, utilize old cameras to give off that classic movie charm, and they're endlessly rewatchable. So by adding these movies in and removing the rest, my Halloween franchise is 10 films, not 13. To get the obvious out of the way, the 6 films of the Halloween franchise proper in my headcanon franchise is 1 through 6. 5 Myers movies is plenty for me, plus it's the films with Donald Pleasance playing the iconic role of Dr. Samuel Loomis. I know people love Laurie Strode, but my favorite character growing up and even still today is Jamie Lloyd. Halloween 4 through Curse of Michael Myers might be a frustrating storyline for her character, but I've kind of learned to just accept that this trilogy isn't perfect for her, but they are perfect in a sense of keeping Halloween mostly just a late 70s to 80s property, with the exception of Curse of Michael Myers being a 1995 film. Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is my favorite film of the Halloween franchise, which might shock a lot of you that don't know me, but I love the wildly creative story starring my favorite horror anti-hero of all time, Dr. Don Chalice, as he uncovers a batshit evil plot to kill children on Halloween. Sue me, I can't help it. So that leaves us with 4 movies to add into the mix. And the first choice might not come to much surprise, and I'm going to keep this short and brief, but it's John Carpenter's The Fog. An eerie, haunting story about a coastal town being plagued with pirate specters in the cold months of the year. What can I say? Great monsters, cold setting, suspenseful horror, and memorable movie. The next addition to add in is another John Carpenter film. This time it's his adaptation of Stephen King's book of the same name, Christine. I know, a Stephen King adaptation in the Halloween franchise? Weird, right? Well, what's weirder is that Halloween Ends from the David Gordon Green trilogy of films was a spiritual ripoff and love letter to this film. Like the former, this has a rich fall-esque atmosphere, and it's a story about a guy who falls in love with his vehicle, which might be evil incarnate, and his friends notice a change within him that isn't as scary as what the car is doing to him or other people for that matter. This film is also beautifully shot with those old school cameras that give this film a classic early 80s look, and its story might be the best, or second best, to Halloween 3's. Which brings me to the last 2 recruits for the franchise, and it's a popular vampire duology from the 1980s known as Fright Night and Fright Night Part 2. The first film was directed and written by Tom Holland, who you might know from the original Child's Play, and the second film was directed by Tommy Lee Wallace, the director of Halloween 3. The films are about a teenager named Charlie who recruits the help of television paranormal host Peter Vincent to help him take care of a vampire that lives next door and a vampire that's trying to seduce him. The creature effects are amazing, the storyline between both movies feels seamless, and both possess a high quality when it comes to building cold fall atmosphere, being spooky and eerie, and going full on violent when need to be. Now, I know that these movies I added in wouldn't have been realistically added to the Halloween franchise, but the exercise here is to show that you can look to the time period and original creators to find films that could fill the anthological void that the franchise once wanted to be. I'm sure that the actual films we would have gotten would have been outright about Halloween, or at least focused on being set on the holiday. I could have suggested films like Something Wicked This Way Comes, for example, but it doesn't matter much about the holiday as it does the vibes and same creators being involved. There's plenty of ways you could watch these films, but I have now, for a few years at least, gone by the release year. And in this order, this is how I normally watch them. It's Halloween 1978, The Fog, Halloween 2 1981, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, John Carpenter's Christine, Fright Night, Halloween 4 The Return of Michael Myers, Fright Night Part 2, Halloween 5 The Revenge of Michael Myers, and then last but not least, Halloween The Curse of Michael Myers. I'd say I love 9 out of 10 movies here, and for shits and giggles, if you wanted my ranking from worst to best, it's Halloween 5 at the clear bottom, and everything else pretty much in a running tie for the middle, and then we have Christine, Halloween 78, and Halloween 3 at the top 3. Maybe there are other films I could have added that didn't make the cut here. By all means, let me know in the comment section what I possibly missed. One last note, if we must keep 3 extra movies in the franchise, I'd take the David Gordon Green movies to make it 13 for those who are wondering. I'm sure I'm not the only one who watches the Halloween franchise in this weird way, but let me know your Create Your Own Halloween anthology in the comments down below. Until next time, take care.